Welcome to the Near Memo, a weekly conversation about search, social, and commerce. What happened, why it matters, and the implications for local. Okay, so we're going to move on now. That's a fascinating topic. We could talk about it for a lot longer, obviously, but we're going to move on now to a completely different topic about. Yeah, that's how I segue smoothly. Now we're going to talk about something completely different, and now for something completely different. So David, one of our contributors, Adam Dorfman from Reputation, used to be called Reputation.com, now just Reputation, wrote a piece this week that went up this week on unstructured data and how you should be collecting consumer feedback from all these different sources, not just focused on your outbound survey or your NPS score, because you're going to get a much better view of what your brand stands for and how people think about it. That was the segue. Perception of the brand. There, I missed it.
There we go. Good.
Adam, retroactive after the fact is better than none at all. Okay, so take it away.
So Adam's excellent piece sort of dovetailed with a couple of other items that came across my desk this week, and a conversation I was having with a client thinking about implementing a fairly significant change to their reputation management process internally. So all these things sort of came together for me this week. And I think, first of all, I want to highlight the value, as Adam calls it, the value of unstructured data around consumer experiences. I think that the number of, particularly on social platforms like Twitter, and he even points out on TikTok, the number of consumers who are organically talking about their experience with you outside of any actual process of the company gathering feedback, number one. Number two, outside of any effort to gather that feedback on a review platform like Google or Bazaar Voice or whatever review platform you're using as a brand. I think that the importance of just listening is really, really important. One of the things it also drove home for me is something that Mike's been talking about for years, even since before he was involved in GatherUp. But the I don't even know if it's inability, but just the trend or the reality of so many companies soliciting all this feedback just for the score, right? Like that they are just oriented so far around how many stars do we have on Google, or what's our NPS? Is our NPS above 65 or whatever that is?
It's a metric that people track for internal purposes, often around employee bonuses and other kinds of things like that.
Right, but it's like you're totally missing the forest for the trees, because you're not actually taking that feedback and trying to improve your business. You are just looking at the number. And I think that's, not only are you not listening sort of broadly and widely enough, but you're not even listening to the customers who are giving you this feedback in a structured way. You're just sort of looking at the number. And okay, so that was sort of the piece of Adam's article that got my attention. And then that also dovetailed with this another article that we'll share probably next week in the Near Media newsletter from a company called Growth Design. And I absolutely hated their presentation of this article. They did it in sort of a comic book strip format, which I just found incredibly annoying. I would rather have just seen it in text. But the takeaway was, I thought, really valuable, which is we have gone so far down the NPS track that so many companies are now using this as a metric for tracking things internally. It's even something that all of the review platforms in our space are using, thanks in no small part to GatherUp's sort of being at the forefront of this. But the whole notion of NPS actually makes it more difficult to get feedback from the largest sample of customers. So this Growth Design article highlighted an email that came from, I think, the guy's bank about how his experience was when he was making a deposit in the last week or whatever. And all of these solicitations, start with this big block of text, and then they ask you to sort of, look at a specific question and then pick a number on a 10-point scale. And the point of this article, and I think the one that resonates with me, is that a better email is simply to have a sort of frowny face, neutral face, or smiley face, and then to ask someone to sort of follow up with more granularity about their experience. And I think this is something that could be true for businesses of all sizes to sort of take their to simplify their review ask in an effort to gather more feedback. Number one. Number two, it seems particularly problematic for a lot of these big enterprises that are implementing very complicated consumer feedback software along the lines of Qualtrics, which I think is one of the worst offenders, that create these 10-step, 10-page surveys where they're asking about,
with with
every
grids,
possible
with
with
grids.
grids, exactly. Every possible data point of your entire experience with that company, and then asking you to rate that on a particular numeric scale. And it just seems like they're missing the actual, the only customers who are going to fill that out are the ones who are really, really motivated. So did they have an incredible experience, or was it a terrible experience? And so they're actually missing most of the feedback that they should be gathering. So I think both of these two articles sort of point to the need to take a wider view of what the experience is at your business, and to try to actually listen to what that wider set of consumers is saying to make a difference in how you're doing business moving forward.
I think the point that I'm sorry to cut you off, Mike.
Okay, which is the critical point, which is make a difference on how you do moving forward, is that letting it sit there and not taking any action on it is really wasted energy all the way around.
I would make 2 points. One I think that's really important that you made, David, is the very myopic focus on ranking or scores or whatever, and not absorbing the information, the genuine customer feedback information in terms of how to improve the business. And about the unstructured versus structured data, when you send out a survey, I mean, we're working on a survey for agencies, digital agencies. You have certain biases and assumptions that you go in with, and you formulate questions which then drive certain kinds, and you create multiple choice answers, and so you skew things. You're not getting true organic feedback. You're getting a kind of a directional snapshot of something. But if you are capturing data from unsolicited feedback across the internet, then you're getting real feedback that you can supplement with your own structured feedback and kind of get a sense of what's going on, or it can inform your structured feedback. But you really need to not rely exclusively on structured information, because it may miss things entirely. I think that would be my.
And even on the structured front, I think, we've seen Apple go in this direction with its relatively new reviews feature, where, they may ask about 6 or 8 different attributes specific to a business, but it's a thumbs up or thumbs down scale. And it's quick and easy for a reviewer to actually fill out. So I think, yes, using the vast amounts of unstructured feedback about your business to potentially identify what the 6 or 8 things you're asking about in a survey is definitely a good thing to do, and then make it really easy, and don't create these sort of multiple levels of cognitive friction for the consumer to actually rate you on those 6 or 8 data points.
Right. Yeah. I mean, to gather up, Aaron Woike very astutely, when we added surveys, limited to 5 questions, 0 to 10 answers, so that the scale matched the NPS scale. So there was no huge cognitive lift. It was very lightweight, and a text box was more prominent than all of that. So, but I think you have to. I mean, I think that there is a way to not throw the baby out with the bathwater. NPS does have value because it is standardized across so many industries, but it only has value when it is combined with full text understanding and the ability to fix these things, and not burdening the customer with all of this crap. I mean, there is some value to NPS, but it isn't the end all be all end all, whatever.
Well, I always think about. I mean, classic NPS is, would you recommend this business, right? Or how likely are you to recommend this business? And I always wonder,
to a friend or colleague.
right? I always wonder, like on outside of the extremes, let's call it 1 to 3 and 7 to 10, like in the middle, which is sort of going to be, as your survey indicated, where a lot of people are gonna wind up. How do you interpret those results? Just that's bland mediocrity and people are ambivalent?
Well, MPS divides it into detractors, supporters, and everybody else. And supporters are only 9s and 10s. Detractors are 0 through 6. So they analyzed the scale and reallocated it so that it is detractors. And ultimately, the measurement is a subtraction of the detractors from the promoters. So they've skewed it. They don't skew it the way a 5-star scale is skewed. Only 9 and 10 are
I mean,
promoters.
I suppose it shows you if you're improving over time. If you benchmark your own NPS and then you
although
look at
it's a trailing indicator, right? You have to be careful because the way the averages work with it's very difficult once you have a low number to build it higher. So you have to be sure to segment and plot it over time so that you can see if improvements are being made. But it does have some value. My point is that it shouldn't be the primary thing, and it shouldn't be part of a grand 20-question survey. I mean, people should be able to give their feedback textually, and a business should be looking everywhere for feedback. I think both of those things can be true. You just have to limit your desire to get 30 questions answered. It isn't going to happen.
Well, that's all for this week on survey design. Welcome to join us next week when we'll be talking about.
Thanks for joining David, Mike, and Greg. To stay on top of the latest developments in local, subscribe to our newsletter at nearmedia.co. We'll see you next week.